Hello, I'm Jamie, and this is Alex from Red Dot Cameras.
Hi guys.
And about a month ago, we decided to take these 4 lenses in front of us for a bit of a test run, didn't we? We tried a few different things, and so what I think would be nice, Alex, is can you give the viewers a bit of a breakdown of which lenses we have in front of us?
Yeah, so essentially we have 4 50mm lenses. So here we've got the 50mm Summilux, the close focus edition, a bit more old school here. We have the 50mm 2.8 collapsible lens, a bit more vintage. Then the 50 Noctilux, the F1 version, and then the classic and one of the most popular 50mm lenses from Leica, the 50mm F2, what people call version 5 with the built-in hood.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Did you say it?
Yeah, I think so.
So we decided to take these out for a bit of a test run, as I mentioned earlier, to Barbican, which is just outside of the Red Dot Camera store. We were mainly focused on a few different areas of what these lenses produced, and one is sharpness, and that is definitely something that I'm very interested in by. I really like a sharp image, and I think the way that that reads on film is beautiful. We're also looking at their character, and before I get into any more on that, I'm going to admit right now is I'm not an expert when it comes to this sort of thing, whereas Alex is a lot more of an expert, but we both said straight away that we don't want to bog you guys down with stats and specs, because of course you can look that up or follow a spec channel, and there are plenty out there. But you guys have got a great book actually at Red Dot, haven't you?
Yeah, so we've got the 9th edition of the Pocket Book, which is available at our store. We also have a bigger edition, just in case the standard one feels a bit too small. If you want to buy that one, you can only buy it from our store.
So we're going to be cutting back and forth between us here in the studio and also us in the field. One of the other nice things to mention is using our red helium, we've also shot on the Leica R lenses, and we're using the 50mm Summilux, I believe, aren't we?
Yeah.
So Alice, why don't you tell us about these lenses, and what we'll do is let's focus on sharpness to start, and we'll go from the slowest lens to the fastest lens. How's that sound?
Okay, cool, perfect. So the collapsible Elmar, I'd say, shines for its compactness, and obviously you can collapse it, which is quite convenient, especially when you're packing your camera and etc. But I would argue, or I'd say, it's probably the least sharp of all of them. It's still sharp enough, even if you shoot it wide open. If you shoot it with a modern digital body, you're still going to have enough resolution and enough resolving power to get a nice crisp image. The others are going to outshine it when it comes to sharpness. You will see a degradation of sharpness throughout the frame, which means at the center it's going to be pretty decent. You will see how it loses some of that sharpness as you get away from the center. Then the Noctilux F1, as you stop it down, it is pretty sharp, but at F1 it is not ultra sharp. But I think people who choose this lens choose it for its character. I won't get too deep into the character of the lens because we'll be talking about that in a second. I'd say not super sharp either, but it has a very nice soft character. Then going with the 50 F2, which is interesting because the optical design of this lens actually dates back to the 70s, I believe it is. It has remained unchanged for all these years, which I think proves how good the optical design is. It is pretty sharp wide open at f2. Even though it doesn't have any spherical elements, I'd say it's a brilliant lens. However, obviously when you compare it with a contemporary optics from the Summilux spherical, this would be definitely the sharper lens out of these 4, the most contemporary optical design, and you can see even though at the center, far off at the corners, it will have really good performance even at f1.4.
Because film has its kind of just one resolution, right? It's really cool to bring sharpness through film, and when you see that on the Summilux, which I've used for a long time from Red Dot, they lent it to me when I went to Istanbul and other parts of Turkey, and that has been my all-time favorite lens on a film camera. It is very nicely weighted as well. You know, using this Noctilux, which I've used here, the modern day Noctilux, it's very heavy, and it's not something that you want around your neck all day. It's too much. And now I think that's why people would tend to lean towards the Summicrons quite a lot, because it is a smaller body, it's a smaller build than the Lux. For sharpness, I think that this is incredible mixed with film. It's like the first person to ever mix salt and sweet popcorn together. Who knew it was going to be great, but it is just, you know, opposites attract in that respect. So it is a gorgeous lens. And so I think if you are shooting film and you're looking for sharpness, I'd say that's a very good option.
That's be done with an edgy shot, whereas I think this is probably something a really cool spot. Let's see. Let's check it out. I know with the tripod, because the eyes don't.
Should we look at character next? Character's quite a big one, especially for Leica users in general, because I think that Sony, Canon, Nikon, you kind of just want perfection, right?
Yeah.
You're looking for that perfect shot that can be used for editorial work. It could be used to blow up on a big scale, whereas Leica users in general tend to, or anyone that uses a kind of a rangefinder format, for sure, with some of these modern focus lenses, definitely look for that character. So when we talk about the character, we start with the 2.8 again.
Yeah, cool, perfect. So yeah, the 2.8 is certainly going to have some of that character because it's not super clinical, it's not ultra sharp, it is sharp enough, and that degradation of sharpness going towards the corners as well as sharpness, other things like chromatic aberrations and etc. that start to come up, and the vignette as well. It's not absolutely wild in terms of character. It does have character, probably just enough. A lot of people that come into the store actually have this idea of like, I want a really vintage lens with lots of character. When we go through and test all these lenses, like when we go like proper vintage, like the mountain Elmars and like lenses from the screw mount bodies, they end up realizing that it's a bit too much sometimes. And I feel like this is probably a sweet spot for a lot of people where it's got character, but it's still got a good performance. The Chron again, kind of like I was mentioning on with the 2.8, it's kind of like the modern version of that. Again, it's not a spherical lens, so it's not going to be absolutely perfect like, you know, like the 50 Apo would be or anything like that. But it is an amazing lens, just like we mentioned before. The optical design has remained unchanged for many, many years, proving how, you know, if something works, there's no need to change it. It's sharp in the center, it's really good in the corners as well. If you stop it down, it becomes like a lens that is hard to beat, honestly. But I think it's got a really nice rendering, so it's going to have a bit more of a modern and a bit more contemporary look than the 2.8 is going to have. It's still going to have some character and soft rendering to it, especially in the bokeh.
Because with the Summicron, someone told me that, I can't remember which version it is, you might be able to correct me, but there's a 35 Summicron which people call the bokeh king.
Yeah, so that would be, some people call the 35 f2 the version 4, which is the last non-aspherical 35 f2. That's what people call the king of bokeh.
Okay.
I've heard some people call the steel rim the king of bokeh as well.
Because bokeh is something that people do look for as part of the character, isn't it?
Absolutely, definitely. It's one of the things that people really do look out for.
Do you want to do the Noctilux or the Summilux?
Let's do the Noctilux. So Noctilux, without a doubt, that's the one that's going to have the most character out of all of them. Like, you can instantly tell when you've taken a shot with a Noctilux, if you're comparing it to any of these lenses, especially at f1. You're going to have heavy vignetting. I actually love, some people might not be attracted to this sort of look because it actually imprints quite a signature look to your images. So a lot of vignetting at f1. It's got some chromatic aberration. It is soft, so if you're doing portraits and you don't want to see everyone's blemishes in their face and you don't want to, you know, super crisp pores and all these sort of things, the f1 is a great lens, and that sort of vignette really makes people pop as well in portraits. That character that the Noctilux adds really puts a focus on your subject.
And one thing I would say about the Noctilux, again, if you're using it on film, and obviously all these lenses are great on digital, and that depends on what the body is, but using it on film, I've shot a lot of 35mm with a Noctilux, whether it be the old or the modern, and I get messages from people saying, is this medium format? And I don't know why, but this brings a medium format look to film sometimes.
Yeah, so...
And I find that really interesting.
Interesting, yeah. So something quite characteristic of medium format would be that you can achieve very shallow depth of field even with wide lenses. The Noctilux does bring that look to the table. You have a 50mm, but it's got a much shallower depth of field that you would expect from that sort of field of view. The 50 Summilux, without a doubt, the best performing lens out of the four we've got here. So that's going to have the least amount of chromatic aberration, least amount of vignette when you shoot them all at the same f-stop, because obviously it wouldn't be fair to compare f2 against 1.4. And yeah, the sharpest lens out of all, less distortion, so overall best performance across the board compared to the other three lenses. And what's really cool about this lens, and this is what they added with the last version of the Summilux, is that you can actually focus closer than 0.7. Traditionally, lenses would only focus down to 0.7 because that's as close as the rangefinder is going to get without introducing any parallax discrepancy between the viewfinder and what you're actually capturing.
So as you can see this photo here, this is 0.7 meters, and this one here at 0.5, and you can see there is a huge difference between the two. So I think that was one of my main things when I had a lot of the M lenses at the start, and I wanted to use them for close portraits, getting really nice and tight, and you just simply can't do that. And it's not the same to crop into your image. Whereas when you have the 0.45, it doesn't sound a lot in terms of numerically, but it is a lot closer, and therefore the closer your subject is as well, the bigger that fall off and that character actually starts to come through in the background.
Something that's really interesting as well, if you, like me for example, shoot through other materials to refract or diffuse light or to get some different effects, it's very useful to have this close focus because it really makes a difference when you can actually put the lens closer to all of these materials, which actually diffuses them and gives like a soft hint of the materials you're using in front of the lens.
Who are these lenses for predominantly, and when would you be using them?
So, in my opinion, I'd say that definitely if you want a system as compact as possible, I would definitely go with the Elmar, because obviously you can collapse it and it makes the whole system a lot easier to transport and pack and etc. The 50f2, it's a very old trusty lens, it's been around for a while. It's not too big, not as big as the Summilux, so if you don't need the extra aperture, I'd say go with the f2 in that case. Then the 50f1 can be a bit tricky with the rangefinder, but when you nail it, it is definitely really satisfying. Obviously it's a heavier lens, so you've got to take that into account as well. And then the 50 Summilux, I'd say it's, again, a great all-around lens. If you want something that's high performing, and you can shoot it wide open without sacrificing any of its quality, definitely go with the 1.4. Also, if you're shooting digital, really interesting because as we mentioned before, you can focus closer than 0.7 and you can use the screen or the EVF that you can buy as well to take advantage of that for close focus. Also as well, if you're shooting film, you may start your day with a 200 ISO roll of film, night comes through, or you live in the UK, which isn't super sunny as well.
As you can tell from our skin.
Yeah, especially mine. And yeah, the extra aperture is always appreciated in film body, I'd say.
Where I think as well the Summilux is so nice, it's just so nicely balanced on a camera like this. And I've been using the 28 Summicron, which is obviously very similar in weight to the 50 Summicron. And that is super light. This isn't a lot heavier. It is definitely heavier, but when you put things like this Noctilux, which I've just taken off, it is so heavy, and so is this one. So if you look at these, if you are going to have them especially around your neck all day and walk around, these really catch you. I feel that obviously these are going to be great, but the Lux is right in the middle, and I think it's just, if you have the money, I do think it is probably the perfect lens. It allows you to kind of do everything, as you said, shoot at night, be sharp enough, still have a lot of character. It's probably the most perfect lens as well in terms of the actual image that you're getting back. It's the most accurate. But again, the beauty of photography, right, is everyone has their own style and their own purpose of what they're shooting for. And I think that all of these lenses are great in their own right. So I guess at the end of this video, what we need to try and decide actually is which of these is our actual favorite lens. This one's obviously not in the mix. It's quite obvious that mine is this. I've just talked about that. What would yours be?
I'd say that the 50-1.4 is actually my favorite lens as well. I nowadays mainly shoot digital, so the close focus comes in handy. I like a clean image because you can always degrade and post, but you can't really do it the other way around. I'm quite a post-oriented shooter, I'd say. So in that case, it'd be the 50-1.4. But if I had to choose a different lens from Jamie, I'd say the 50f2. I think the f1, I love the look of it, but for me it's just a bit too big. And I think the 2.8 is just a bit too slow. So I feel like the f2 sits in that sweet spot between not being neither too big, neither too slow. So my second option would be the f2.
You are blessed with a lot of lenses around you every day at work. And so it's interesting to hear your point of view, and thank you so much for talking about it on the channel. But well, I guess that leads me on to one of the other things is, in our previous videos, especially involving red dot cameras, people have been asking for certain questions about it and maybe a tour. Would that be of interest to people if we had a tour of red dot cameras? And also, what would you actually like to see in the shop? You know, they've got an amazing array of accessories, old cameras, new cameras with cutting edge technology, etc. So it would be really interesting to see a full tour of that, and maybe we will do that if there's enough interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would really enjoy doing that. So, well, thank you so much for watching. We've really enjoyed it. It's been entertaining for ourselves. Yeah. We've been wanting to get this one done for a while as well, because we both love a 50mm. And so yeah, hopefully you guys at home have enjoyed it. Hopefully it's worked with your coffee timings, that you finished up and now you can have another one. And yeah, big thanks to Alex and Red Dot Cameras as always, and we will see you in the next one.
Question for you, Alex.
Okay, go ahead.
If you walked into Red Dot Cameras today and wanted to leave with one camera and one lens, what are they?
I'm very much a manual shooter, so even though I think the Q3's got great features and the autofocus is top class now, I'd stick with the M, just because my style of shooting is a bit more manual oriented. And if I had to take any lens, I'd definitely take the 35-1.4 close focus that we're carrying today. I feel like 35 is a cool focal length, at least for me. It gets you close enough to isolate your subjects and make nice portraits, but it also keeps it wide enough to, you know, if you want to take pictures that capture a bit more of the environment and get a bit more of the atmosphere, it's quite cool for that. So I feel like, for me, 35 gives me that sweet spot between, you know, portrait-y and environment-y sort of focal length. So yeah, that would be my choice.